Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us for this webcast. Today we are speaking with Mary Harden. She's an experienced OCM practitioner as well as a project management practitioner. In fact, she has certifications in both areas. She has a lot of experience with large-scale changes, and right now she leads a PMO for a financial services company in the Midwest. So Mary, thank you so much for carving out time to have this conversation.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yep. So today we're talking about integrating change management and project management to add strategic value. But before we get directly into the content, Mary, can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. As you mentioned, I'm a lead project manager for an enterprise PMO for a medium-sized financial services company here in the Chicagoland area. Previously, I worked for a global professional services organization that offered risk, retirement, and health solutions. I do have the PMP, the CCMP from the Association of Change Management Professionals, and I'm also ProSci certified. I've led a wide variety of wide range of projects over the last 10-ish years, ranging from, a culture change around a client service model. Wow. To lately, I've been focused on technology implementations, a couple of, I call them rescue and recovery projects around pretty large implementations for technology. And through all of that, I've really become passionate about how change management and project management integrate together to deliver value. And that's what, how we got connected and how I ended up here today.
Yeah. Mary, thanks again for having this conversation with me. I share your passion on this topic. So let's get into it. Why should PMOs have a change management competency? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's all about the rise of disruptive technologies. We're looking at a different world now with AI and cloud computing and 3D printers, and and also the digital transformation is a top priority for a lot of organizations as they look to innovate, grow revenue, increase profitability. Yeah. And change management is, imperative to that success of digital transformation. It creates a unique opportunity for the enterprise PMO to evolve and link strategy design to delivery. It's not only technology projects. I think it applies to process improvement, mergers and acquisition, new operating models, even new policies or procedures. Yeah. Projects drive change into the organization, and people will need to do something different as a result of them. I think also there's a lot of data out there that kind of proves the point. Yeah. Everyone has heard the often quoted statistic about 70% of business change initiatives fail. I also, through research for this webcast, found a few more data points I thought were really interesting. ProSci, research quotes initiatives that have change management, excellent change management, are 6 times more likely to be successful than ones that aren't. KPMG has a mega trends report from 2017, and they found that only 25% of PMOs are extremely effective in supporting change in organizations. Really? That's and I think I just read an article from Duke Corporate Education, and they have similar research that, lack of change management expertise is the #1 reason that projects fail. And their percentage was 45%. And I think McKinsey has similar results. So I think it's, not only quantitative reasons, but there's a lot of qualitative reasons as well.
Yeah. And we were kind of chatting before the webcast went live, but just to get your perspective, why do you think so many of practitioners and organizations view change management and project management as 2 separate entities?
I think it's just the nature of the way we do work. I think just there is an evolution, I think, around project work in organizations.
Yeah.
I think business leaders used to be focused on running the business instead of changing the business. It's probably like 90-10%. And now I think it's probably more 70-30. They're probably focusing more on changing the business than running the business. And so it leads to a lot of project work. And, it's no longer the manager doing it off the side of his desk. There's more dedicated resources to actually delivering the project.
Yeah, no, Mary, I love your response. I had to write something down. You're right. It's the evolution of the work. I remember, I don't know, maybe 7 years ago. Remember when transformation was really coming to life in a lot of companies? And so you had KTLO work, like keep the lights on work, and then you had transformational work, which was the project work. And companies initially would put their top talent on all the transformational work. I remember seeing that and experiencing it myself like years ago. And then now, to your point, the nature of project work has evolved and more leaders are focusing on, kind of moving the company forward. And as a result of that, change management, project management is becoming more of an integrative part of work. So yeah, it's an evolution. No, I love that. I love that. So what are some of the pressures that enterprise PMOs face as a leader of an enterprise PMO? What are some of those pressures?
Well, I think the C-suite is attempting multiple. Gone are the days of a large change every 3 years.
Yeah.
To our earlier point, and executives are attempting multiple, more complex, large-scale changes at greater speed, and we have fewer resources. The project management office is, it's imperative that we drive significant value in order to see those tangible results, especially in the digital transformation. We have shorter time frames. It's a lot of pressure from the marketplace. Geopolitical issues, you name it. I think there's an overall need for rapid delivery, fast benefit realization, and agility to change faster.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. So I know that we don't have an hour or a day to go through this, but just to start the conversation, how do you integrate change management with project management? That's a heavy it but like
it's a loaded question. I think we also talked about it depends who you're talking to, but I think you need to make sure people understand what change management is and what it isn't. And there's a lot of common misconceptions. So I would start with that. Especially if you're working with technology PMs, there's it's more thought of as change control. So a change to the project scope or timeline, or version control, software version, hardware version. A lot of people think it's just communication or just training, and I think it's also used as an umbrella term when you're thinking of any kind of change initiative, Lean, Six Sigma, business process improvement. So really defining what we mean by change management, and then talk about how you would integrate that with a project management plan in order to reap the benefits of the project, including the people-dependent ROI.
No, I love that. And the truth is, in speaking with a number of organizations and being on different projects, it does vary, right? It varies. If you're a large organization operating globally, change management may mean more than communications and training, right? But if the scope of the effort that you're supporting is smaller, then change management could just mean communications and training. It's going to vary. after doing research and supporting different projects and advising different companies, you really have to define it for yourself. So I love that. I love that point. Um, what are some other ways that companies can integrate both change management and project management? And I want to put this out there too. I know me and you talked in one of our prep sessions about the importance of aligning on a methodology, right? So that you can break the work down into phases and also think through, okay, what is project management accountable for in this phase, right? What based on how you're defining change management, what is expected of change management in this particular phase as well, and taking this relational approach across your methodology to integrate the work appropriately. Is there anything else you want to add? I know we talked about that.
I think, as a true PM and really grounded in the methodology, the PMI framework, you really have to think about those phases. So as you said, initiation, but
Yep.
what are the change management considerations when you're thinking about initiation? What should you be thinking about when you're creating the charter? Are you thinking about the needs for training and communication and including that in the budget?
Yeah.
Figuring out who are all of the stakeholders, and really look at it that way. And I usually try to tell people it's not all about the tools and the templates and the assessments. It's not about that, even though project management does have a lot of templates and tools.
Yeah.
And just trying to figure out what are those touch points through each phase of the project. When you're thinking of planning, when you're gathering business requirements, and you're thinking about the technical and the functional and the business requirements, there's a lot of other questions that you can ask at the same time that will help the change management aspect of the project. Who are the impacted stakeholders? What other processes might change as a result of this project? Who should we be engaging to possibly be change agents or change champions?
Yep.
And, so on and so forth, and just go through each phase and really think about what are those touch points where you can not think of it as, change management and project management, but more of a integrated project plan that incorporates the change management elements with it. So I was trying to think of, when I think about projects and incorporating, because we don't have a separate change management capability.
Yeah.
So it's almost like if you wear bifocals,
Yeah.
and I have contacts, and one is nearsighted and one is farsighted, and together I can see. It's kind of how I think about it. It should be seamless. It should not be one or the other. And if there are change management, resources on the project, you should be in lockstep, and it should start at the very beginning of the project. It's not something that we're getting ready to go live. Oh yeah, we got to throw change management in here.
Yeah.
And I've been guilty of that, just because a project manager wears a lot of hats. You're managing stakeholders, you're trying to coach the sponsor, you're dealing with issues, you're doing communications, you could be doing a lot of the work as well.
Yeah.
And so you really have to step back and think about leading the project and not get into the urgency of dealing with issues and kind of lose that overall perspective.
Yeah, no, I love that. As for PMO leaders, because there's people in the change in our community, there's people probably on this call that lead PMOs. Should change management as a competency, should a PMO invest in that early on, or should they become more of a mature PMO before they look to bring in change management? Because as you think about the work, there are some areas of the work that would be truly beneficial if you have a project manager that's familiar with some of the principles of change management, even some of the deliverables. But then you get to a point where someone can be overwhelmed with the work if they're accountable for doing, training, deliverables, communication, as well as, regular project management work. So, should an early stage PMO invest in that OCM competency, or should it, or should they wait a little longer? What's
My experience has been that I am an enterprise PMO that is evolving. We're probably about a year mature.
mm-hmm.
And there is just so much, it depends if the organization has had this capability before. So there's a lot of change just in implementing an enterprise project management office in an organization.
Yeah.
And I think it would be biting off quite a bit to as I say that, you kind of need change management to implement an ePMO. And so there's really, you have to strike a balance. You're probably, as you roll out an ePMO or any project management function, there's some change associated with that. Business leaders just can't go do projects that aren't
Mm-hmm.
approved or fully vetted, or the due diligence isn't done.
Yeah.
And so in a sense, it may feel like you're slowing them down. But you're slowing them down to really go faster in the end. Yep. And so there's a lot of, communication and change around just the startup of a project management functionality.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think it probably makes sense to layer that in as you feel the organization is ready. And, once you start delivering successful projects, and you're starting to take on bigger and more complex projects, you're going to need change management in order for them to be successful.
Yeah.
It's inevitable.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. Let's talk about practitioner skills. What are some of the practitioner skills that are required to successfully integrate both project management and change management? And as someone who has a certification in both, what's your perspective on that?
Well, I think it's about building muscle. You might be stronger in project management or stronger in change management, but you have to understand, where people are coming from. It's a lot about leadership, really.
Yeah.
And having self-awareness and trying to look ahead, and not getting caught up in the day-to-day, checking the box, filling out your status report. You have to kind of pull up and look strategically at a project and think about, what does success look like? And work with your sponsors and project team and help them understand how change management should be incorporated into the project. Now, having said that, I think practically, PMI, if you have a PMP certification, you have to keep it current, as well as with the CCMP. So there's a lot of work involved in, just self-study, externally going to meetings or webinars or symposiums, or, to build more muscle. There's also a lot of things you can do on your own. There's tons of resources, and I think we're going to share some of those after this call that they're kind of my go-to when I really want to look at a topic, or when I'm going to present on change management and the integrating with project management. It is a little hard to find training on it because it's pretty segregated. But I think there are starting to be some thought leaders that are emerging around the integration of the two really disciplines. And, it's really just been a lot of work on my own for me to really try to develop that muscle, to try to lead projects more strategically, to talk about it more. People around me really get tired of hearing me talk about it, but it's one by one. You have that conversation, you help people understand, and you bring them along. It's not going to happen overnight. I also think there's really just some soft skills around it. Having really good communication skills. Your EQ, your emotional intelligence, being able to be resilient and adaptive and creative, really lend itself towards change management. There's not just like project management, there's not a one size fits all. You have to learn how to fit for purpose.
Yep.
But you know, the framework that you're going to use to manage a project, and that goes for both sides, project management and change management. There's an art and a science to it.
There really is. So I have a question, or really a comment from Michael. I want to try to transition him into the conversation. Michael, can you hear us?
Yes, hi.
Hey, go ahead.
Well, I think it goes to elaborating on what you just covered, Mary, was the idea of, you know, from each perspective, how have you helped the other person expand their vision on integration? So I've run into project managers that are so rigid in their process that they think they've covered it and that's it, and they don't need us till later. From a change management perspective. And then on the flip side, I've worked with other change management practitioners who say, you've got to do it my way. So I'm just curious if you've run into that, and what are some of the things that you've done to expand their vision?
Well, I have a really good example, actually. I did a project last year. We were rolling out a digital mortgage application, and I started with the executive sponsor. I had the conversation of how project management is different from change management. And here I boiled it down to the simplest terms, and a lot of people that know me have heard me say this. Yeah. Project management is building the bus, and change management is getting people on the bus. And so we can't just build a digital mortgage solution and you know, it had a huge change management component to it. You know, not only for our internal employees that were going to be using it, it really changed the way they did work, but also for our customers. You know, they were going to be able to access, you know, putting in a loan application after hours from any device, you know, and there were a lot of business benefits to be gained from it. So you kind of have to learn how to tell stories and show people, you know, what it exactly means for project success to layer in the change management aspect of it. We could have delivered a digital mortgage solution that worked fine. It met, you know, it met all the business requirements. We did it, you know, on time, within scope, within budget. But if nobody used it or no customers used it, was it successful? Mm-hmm. And so that's usually my approach, is to make it real, apply it to that actual project, and get good at telling stories. Does that help?
Yeah, and did you leverage that executive sponsor to lean on anybody in the project team?
Oh, yes, I did.
Okay.
He was a great, you know, advocate. He got it, and you know, I'm typically more of a carrot person versus the stick, but when I need to use a stick, I can. And you know, we did a lot of things around, you know, gamification. You know, we tried to have competitions around who took the most apps in the using the solution, who had the shortest cycle time, who had the highest customer service score, NPS, and that really helped. And he, you know, looked for those updates and talked about them in meetings, and he really walked the walk, and that helped a lot. And I think that would be my coaching, is to get the executive sponsor, coach them, get them to buy in, and it helps a whole lot as you cascade down through the project team.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank
you.
You.
Yeah, no, Mary, this is good. Mary, what are some things that that we may believe about project management and change management that are not necessarily true? Another loaded question.
Yeah. Well, I think it goes back to, you know, the misconceptions about what exactly we mean by it. It is kind of an umbrella term. And I hate to even separate further when you're talking about project managers. I'm more on the business side.
Yeah.
Even though I do a lot of technology projects, I work with a technology project manager. And so there are some different mindsets when it comes to change on a project. Even, they're deeply rooted in technology functions
Yeah.
of what change means. And so it's really a shift in their perspective of how to think about, the end as you implement the solution. How are people's jobs going to be impacted, and what do we need to do, now to get in front of that? So it's a lot of, trying to meet people where they are. And like I said, having one conversation at a time and trying to win people over one by one gets it done. And that's, I think, what I think about when it comes to change management. I do think it's a not well-known discipline. There are some people, and I have found them in our organization, that are advocates and, shine the light and talk about it. But there's a lot more work to be done, I think.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I totally agree with you. I facilitated a webinar yesterday for PMI, and one of the questions was, when should OCM get involved? And the way I answered the question, I answered the question in a certain way, because I'm trying to help fellow change management practitioners and also project management practitioners position themselves for success. So the answer I gave was, at the moment a decision is made is when you need to start thinking about the project management support as well as change management support. And so, and sometimes that happens even before the business case is approved. What are your thoughts on that? And the reason why I gave that answer is because we see so many times that change management is brought in as a reactive measure. And at that particular point, the team or the practitioner is really just pushing a rock up a hill. They're not positioned for success. So I don't want to talk too much. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, even I'm actually mentoring a group right now that is doing some assessments around a project that hasn't been approved yet. We're assessing, just like you do your due diligence for a project, what are the risks and, what the project is actually going to entail. You should be thinking about it as well from the people in the organization. Can they absorb this change that this project is going to bring on? What are the risks around, what are the people risks? Not as much as, what are the project risks? And that might influence decisions around the project, whether it gets approved now, whether it needs to be maybe delayed until we do some other stuff to get ready for it. Maybe other projects need to be put on hold. Organizations that are going through a lot of change, you have to think about the change fatigue of your staff, and can they absorb another large change at this particular moment? So I think it's imperative I agree with you. I think it's the sooner the better.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we have a question from Daryl, or it may be a comment. Daryl, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
We can hear you perfect. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, and thanks, Mary, for providing your views on the difference between organizational change management and project management. And I'm really appreciative of the comments that you just recently made when really trying to articulate the differences between change management and project management. To that end, I'd like to try and get your understanding about what you just expanded upon, and that is change strategy, not change management at the execution or the project level, but change management as you think about it organizationally, because there are, significant differences between practitioners. And so I'm kind of curious, in your organization and what you're responsible for as the leader of the PMO, how do you use change practitioners in order to vet initiatives before they even become projects?
Okay, so we don't have dedicated change management practitioners. We leverage business leaders to do that analysis. We are very, very immature in that process, and so we don't really have a formalized strategy around change management. I do see that as something that we will be building out very soon. And I think it's within the EPMO, the Enterprise Project Management Office, we are trying to build capability with the project managers. That's kind of our strategy right now, is starting with the people who do the projects and are working with business leaders. In our project management office, we have access to senior leaders. We work with very executive senior leaders on projects. And it's a great opportunity to be having those conversations and, one by one, again, kind of teaching people about what it is and getting their buy-in before we do, an ask for the change management office, because people need to understand the value of it. It goes back to the methodology for change management. Really, they have to have the awareness of why we need it before they can buy into it and learn more about it. So it's right now about the why, like, why do we need to do this?
No, thank you for that, Mary. And I'll also say, you mentioned that you try to leverage the business for change management. I think that is the perfect approach. In speaking with a number of organizations just over the last couple of weeks, there's a lot of benefit in trying to leverage the business to facilitate the change management activities, because at the end of the day, they're the ones who need to adopt the new ways of working. So why not have them kind of own those activities? So I love that. I want to be conscious of your time, Mary. So is there any additional remarks or comments that you want to put out there before we conclude the webcast?
No, I think what I would say is when we're talking about like how to integrate project management and change management, I would say don't get paralyzed by the enormity of the topics. I would just dig in, try little experiments. I practice it with my kids. It works great.
Yeah.
And it can work in a lot of different situations. And that's how I think, people will grasp the understanding of how it really does come together and gets the benefits, the value and the benefits of intended changes.
Awesome. Well, Mary, thank you so much for taking time.
Thank you.
This was great. And for those of you on the call, thank you for all the engagement. I really appreciate it. This concludes the webcast.